everybody, it's your girl Michelle with Girls Talk Real Talk, because when girls talk, just about anything can happen. So I am here today with a friend of mine. Oh my God, it's been a while since we talked. It's been a little while, but Dr. Anissa Short is here with me today. So Anissa, why don't you introduce yourself to our listening and our viewing audience?
Hello, everybody. My name is Anissa Short, resident currently of Fayetteville, North Carolina, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. I am the oldest of two phenomenal daughters. My parents still live in that area. I'm married now for 23 years to my awesome husband, Alfonso Short. And as a person, an individual, I love to laugh. I love meeting people. I love eating ice cream. I love visits to the beach. Anywhere with the ocean and sand is perfect for me. And I love connecting with people. That's something I've always loved doing. So that's just a little bit about me.
So I thought that it was interesting because I'm going to give everybody a little bit of background. Me and Anissa met probably almost 3 years ago.
2019.
2019. Yes, 2019. We were doing an anthology together, and we had an opportunity to meet then, and I had an opportunity to bring her and the other individuals that participated in the anthology with us onto the Girls Talk Real Talk platform so that they would get an opportunity to talk about their chapters in the book and for my listening and viewing audience to get to know them. And so a little birdie told me that, Anissa, you've got another book.
Yes. Actually, Michelle, since we participated in the anthology in 2019, I have published several books since then. Actually, that book was the first, but that was, I think, December when it launched in December. Mm-hmm. The following February, a book I had written, it's a resource for home-based entrepreneurs called The Vendor Blueprint. That was something I was already working on. And my publishing mentor told me to put my book to the side to work on the anthology project and come back to it. And so I followed her instructions. So after that book launched in February of 2020, I then facilitated an anthology. 15 women came together. The name of the book is Becoming the Shero. So that book debuted actually the first part of this year. And then, of course, now 7 Keys to Success, which is my personal baby.
Okay, so I'm excited to know that you went ahead. Now, I have an anthology that I'll be doing next year. I was doing some other things, but I am excited to hear the great things that you are doing. So let's go back and let's talk about the anthology that you did. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I wish I had a glamorous story to share with regards to how that book came about, but honestly, the title of the book was given to me in the wee hours of the morning. I can't remember now, maybe 3 or 4 o'clock. Becoming a Shero. I knew what it was to be about, and so I wrote on a piece of a little sticky pad on my bedside table. I wrote down the title, and I went back to sleep. Then when I got up that morning, I was like, Becoming a Shero. This was going to be a book comprised of other female authors. Entrepreneurs rather. And the whole premise of the book was to serve as to tell your story, because a lot of times we, as children, we watched, the Marvel characters, and we think about, Wonder Woman and the Bionic Woman and all of those are sheroes, but really every female that you've come into contact with has a story. And if they were to tell their story, you would look at her in awe and amazement. And sometimes we don't know what people have gone through, but their life story points to the fact, it confirms and solidifies the fact that every woman that's ever gone through anything and overcome is a Shero. And so these ladies shared their stories, or either they shared stories about people in their lives that made a major impact on them. So when we pulled all the chapters together, I didn't give them any specific directions other than the book was to be one of stories, one to serve as encouragement, and the premise behind why the book was to be written. And so when the stories flooded in and I went through each one of them, I was like, wow. So we summarized and categorized the stories such that we were able to show that Sheros are women who know how to pivot. Sheros are women who stay true to their lane. They stay in their own lane. They don't think like everybody else. Sheroes have a different thought process. And so we ended up having 4 different categories, all 15 stories compiled together. These women, the only thing they had in common was that all knew me. I mean, literally, I had one young lady participate in the project who she and I went to college together. We had not seen each other in over 20 years. And she said, I want to be a part of this, Anissa, just because she knew me. You know, people who lived in cities and states that I used to living in. So the only common denominator was that they trusted me. And now they have their own relationships budded as a result of this. So it's been great. It was a great project. We faced a lot of challenges in getting it published, but nevertheless, it came through and everybody's excited about it. So that was really everybody that's read the book. We got a lot of great feedback from the book. You know, women who've read it and said, oh my God, I read my own story in your book, you know, that type of thing. So yeah, that was a great book.
Well, that's great. It's always great for authors to be able to write a story that invites the reader into it. And allows the reader to see themselves as a character in the book, not only to be able to learn from it, but to connect with it. Right. One of the things, and I've been working with authors to get their stories out there, and that is one of the biggest things that I say to them is invite the reader into the storyline. Right. Pull them in so that they connect not only with the storyline, but with the characters that you're talking about in your story, so that they can see themselves, because they are in relationship with you because they're investing in you by purchasing your book. But then they're going to consume the product, which is the book. So you want to make sure that you continue building that relationship with your readership. So no matter what you put out there, they'll continue to support you, invest in you, and consume the products that you put in the marketplace. So congratulations on
Thank you
anthology.
So much.
That congratulations. So since we met, you've got the anthology out there. Now you've got your baby out there. Tell our viewing and listening audience about Anissa You. How did you step into this space of writing? How did you step into the realm of becoming an author?
You know, I never, as a result of being an entrepreneur, living in the city in which I live, one of the things I was determined to do was to bloom where I was planted. Mm-hmm. And as a home-based entrepreneur, a lot of times, you know, there are exhibitor events and things of that nature that are hosted. And I found walls being, or doors closed to me because they didn't know me. I wasn't from here. They already had a rep representing my product or my industry. And so I decided then to just start hosting my own events. Instead of me trying to get into their events, I said, I'm going to host my own events and bring people to me. And so that's one of the ways in which I built community in this city, building community, especially with other entrepreneurs. In the process of that, Michelle, what ended up happening is I, for some reason, became the go-to person for vendor events. I mean, literally, I would have people contact me, wanting me to facilitate their vendor events for their events, or want advice on various sorts of things, you know, how to facilitate one, or how to even be a vendor, because they were new to their business and had never done this before. And so in the scope of that, after talking to people numerous times, I decided I'm going to write a small book to give all my tips in one compiled, you know, product. Mm-hmm. So when people ask, they can just buy it and I can just give it to them. Or when people are mentoring others that are in business, they'll have something to go by. And so it was in the midst of my decision to write that book, I was going to self-publish and everything, that I met my publishing mentor. I was introduced to her by another woman, not knowing that's what she was, a publishing mentor. So anywho, she read my book. She said, this is a really great resource. What's going to be your next book? And I'm like, I don't plan to write any more books. I was just doing this. This is really it, you know. So anyway, long story short, she says, no, she really spoke into my life. She says, this is not going to be your last book. You will write more books, and you will probably end up even speaking, because you're going to be seen as an expert, as an, you know. And I was like, well, thank you. I appreciate your vote of confidence. That's what came out of my mouth. But what I actually was thinking was, I'm getting this book done. I'm done. I'm not trying to be an author. This is not my lane, right? Michelle, anyway, long story short, she proves me wrong, and we're still laughing to this day, because since then, it's like that was that was a seed planted, because then, you know, the anthology project that we did, that invitation came up in the midst of that. And I was like, and then it just went from there. So what I see now to be the case is that I've always known subconsciously, well, many years ago, while a college student, I remember it being said to me that I would be a consultant of sorts and I would work with women in business, but I didn't know in what capacity. So now, as a result of me being very active in my direct sales company, that was like the open door to other opportunities. And this book, or these books, I should say, and the literary work that I'm doing really serves to encourage women, to empower women and to educate women in various capacities, whether just in life general, but particularly if they're pursuing home-based entrepreneurship. So I'm really walking out what I was told at the age of 19. I just didn't know in what capacity, but I'm doing it now. That's exactly what I'm doing. So I didn't choose this. I think it chose me. This is just a
I think it was a part of your purpose all along. You just didn't know that it was a part of the purpose.
No, I did. I had no clue.
Right. It's an exciting thing when we can actually line up with the purpose that God has created us.
Right.
I'm a firm believer that every individual is created on purpose and for a purpose. And one of the greatest opportunities that we have as being a part of the human race is to be the gift that God has given to the world. So whatever it is that we do, we are being a present to them, not only present in the moment, but we have been gifted to them to answer their life question. Right. And so whenever we step into our purpose, we give them permission to step into their purpose. And then we thereby answer questions without realizing it, that empowers them to step more greatly into whatever God has purpose for them to do.
Yeah. So I can believe that.
Now, you've been talking about your direct marketing that you've done, your home-based business. How did you get started in that? How did you go from what you were doing into direct marketing, into working with entrepreneurs, into becoming an author?
Okay, so, you know, I participated in a retreat about maybe 4 years ago. One of the key speakers said that what you were destined to do, elements of it was exposed to you. You were operating in elements of that as a child. And so she, in turn, had all of us to close our eyes and think back to our 12, 13, 14-year-old selves. What were we doing in that window of time? And I was being entrepreneurial. I could not work a traditional job because I was not old enough, but I was babysitting. And in the process of babysitting, I was making craft items, using a Polaroid camera to take photos of them and creating a catalog, and then having family members take them to work to get me orders. You know, that's what I was doing. So anytime I put my hand to do something, I was always finding a way to monetize it. My mother said I've been that way all my life. So when I thought about it, I believe entrepreneurship is a part of my DNA from the get-go. I just didn't know it. To be a part of the direct sales company for which I have joined and been a part of for 22 years, I never would have imagined even being a part of it, because I didn't see myself as a salesperson. Mm-hmm. I'm not a salesperson, but I am very entrepreneurial. Now, what's crazy is that entrepreneurs either provide a service or a product. I don't know even how you disassociate one from the other, but in our mindset, we limit our thinking to what entrepreneurship is truly about. Mm-hmm. And, but it served as the doorway for me to truly understand not only what entrepreneurship looks like, but the elements of entrepreneurship. It also afforded me the opportunity to become submersed in an environment of the people that I would serve. Remember, I mentioned I would be working with women, right? So this particular company caters to women. It services women for the most part. And then the philosophy of the company was consistent with my values of God and family first, before most. So it gave me the blueprint to give me permission and to strengthen my foundation, so that once I guess, gravitated to other elements of entrepreneurship, I didn't have to feel compromised. I was a federal employee making a great salary, totally great benefits. As people say, I had a good government job, but I was totally dissatisfied, not happy, not fulfilled. Now I feel like I'm doing what I was destined to do. Does that make sense? I
Mhm.
feel like this is my jam, as people say. I'm in my wheelhouse for sure. And it's all starting to make sense. I see how the pieces, joining the direct sales company was just supposed to be a temporary decision. To stay in it was a miracle. People I run into now go, "You do what?" I'm like, "You don't even." I said, I know it's a miracle, right? So all of that though served as stepping stones to get to where I am now. So it afforded me a foundation to work with women. So I know women intricately. I know how to work with them from an entrepreneurial standpoint, exclusively. You know what I'm saying? I know their tendencies and their insecurities and things of that nature, because in 22 years I've had to see it from various vantage points, even within myself. So yeah, that's how it all evolved. It's an evolution. The evolution of Anissa Short is what that has become. I have become.
Oh, that's a book. You need to write that title down. That's
I
a
need to
book.
write that title down.
You need to
The
write that
evolution. Yeah.
title down. Um, I want to go back to something that you said while you were talking, and you were talking about you had a good job, but you were unhappy, unfulfilled in that position. So let's talk a little bit about that, because there's a lot of people that are struggling right now. They have called the pandemic the great exodus from corporate America.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people have left corporate America, and because they were stuck at home with their kids anyway, they have gotten into a regimen to where they enjoy being at home with their kids.
Right.
They enjoy being able to do things with their family without being tied to this 9 to 5. And so they have created these businesses that have afforded them the opportunity not only to bring in money into their homes, but also to spend that valuable time with their children. So for those women and for those men that are still on the fence, they haven't quite made the decision, am I going to step off into entrepreneurship and do my own thing? Am I going to take this side hustle that I've got going on and really make it into a lucrative business that is going to support me and my family? Or am I going to stay in this job that is unfulfilling? I'm unhappy. I don't feel like that I'm making a difference, and I don't feel like it's really what I'm meant to be doing. What do you have to say to those individuals?
One of the things that I can relate to is the making sense of it all.
Mm-hmm.
On the surface, it doesn't make sense to leave a great government job, with a GS salary of a 12 to go sell products. I mean, that makes no sense, right? However, the term I coined during that window of time was I was happily dissatisfied. I was happy to be gainfully employed. I was happy to have a job, because many didn't. So I didn't ever want to seem like I was not grateful, but I felt unfulfilled. I felt some days like I was like a monkey putting pegs in circles and squares, was just doing busy work, but I was really not. I used to say in the office sometime, I think I miss my calling, y'all. And they were like, "What is it in this?" I'm not sure, but it's definitely not this, But at the same time, I didn't want to be unthankful. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So to step out and to try something while you still have the safety net of a job, to me, just makes sense. If there was ever a time to try something of your own, to take your hobby and to create it, to develop it into a lucrative business, or to embrace a direct sales opportunity, the best time to do it is before you have to do it. That's my opinion.
Yes.
Because that's what I did. I started while I didn't really have to. I didn't have to have the money. I just did it because it was something to do. Then as I began to see even the more how having this home-based business afforded me the opportunity to be free. It provided me the freedom that the traditional job did not. Okay. Mm-hmm. It provided me the open door for creativity that the traditional job did not. It also afforded other tangibles, such as taxable deductions, from a monetary standpoint. So yes, it provided extra income. It served us well from a taxable standpoint. Then it just began to make sense. Then my thinking went from having a great job to maybe just doing this for a little while and see what happens, to having the great job and saying, you know what, I'm going to stick this thing out and I'm going to build this because I see it makes sense. Mm-hmm. It makes SENSE and it makes CENTS to have a home-based business, right?
Right.
I'm so thankful I did, Michelle, because what evolved over time is that because I was consistent, and once I became consistent with it, I was able to position us to be debt free, to assist even the more to pay our bills. A lot of times people stay on traditional jobs because they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel because they're so overwhelmed with debt. We'll start the other thing to allow that to be your source, an additional source while you can. The flexibility to be able to work from home, when I tell you, it just made sense to me. It made all the sense in the world. And this book, my most recent book, The 7 Keys to Success, ties in a lot, because when I was still kind of vacillating between whether I really should just make the leap and leave the traditional job, I didn't make it. I didn't sit down and say, you know what, I've added up everything and I've counted the costs and I think this is the right time. Let me move forward. No, what ended up happening is that my job literally became hazardous to my health. So I had to leave because of health reasons. And I was glad, though, that I made the conscientious decision, because we were in better position for me to do that at that time. So I don't propose that you do that, but I do say, just take the leap while you can. Don't wait, because a lot of times people say, well, I'm going to wait until my kids get older, or I'm going to wait till I'm closer to retirement. Don't do that. Start now. There are a lot of people who, as a result of the pandemic, were released from their jobs because they thought they would still be able to work. And they probably were offered an opportunity to start something before, and they said no, because they were going to wait until. And then now they were forced to. We talk about the great resignation. That's this window of time, because over 3 million women left their jobs. I don't know if they were all forced out or some just said, I needed to make this decision. And so yeah, that's what I would say. Start now. Don't wait. And find somebody to mentor you through the process. Start off, if it's only 5 to 6 hours a week, commit that consistently and then build from there.
I think that's so important that people begin to look at it, because I'm a firm believer that when the idea hits, it's time for you to move.
Exactly.
Not sit, let me plan this out. Let me figure out what this needs to look, because I am a planner. And so I'm one of those people. I have my notebook and I'm like writing down, this is what I need to do. And I remember when God switched me, because I was a business coach and I was helping small businesses make their businesses legitimate. Because in the African American community, we run a whole lot of illegitimate companies.
Right.
So I was actually working with them, and that's how, just like you, that's how I wrote my first book. That's what started it, because I got tired of repeating myself.
Right.
So
right.
I put it in a book, and I just figure if I put it in a book, I can just give you the book and you can read the book, and then you can come back to me if you have questions.
Right. Right.
And I can mentor you through that process. And so it was after the anthology that we did together. And then God says, I want you to flip the script. And I was like, flip what script? I rather enjoy what I'm doing. I'm good. You know, I'm working my 9 to 5. I've got this on the side. Life is good. I'm good. And he said, no, I want you to switch. I want you to start helping authors. And I was like, why should I start helping authors? You know, I only have 2 books out here in the marketplace, getting ready to put a 3rd one out. Right. And I'm not understanding what you're saying. And he was like, trust me on this. So in the middle of the pandemic, I flipped the script and I finished out with my last business client and moved into working with authors. And when I tell you it's my jam, it's my passion, it is like, I wish I would have known then what I know now, because I probably would have did it sooner.
Let me ask you this, Michelle. Do you find yourself even though you've shifted industry, so to say, don't you find yourself still providing the same type of advice, the same to some degree? Okay, the reason I ask that question is because oftentimes when I talk with people about entrepreneurship, I'll tell them just because it's a different industry, you're going to take your gifts and talents and skills that you have on that traditional job or in this other something and just transfer it. I am literally doing the same thing now that I did when I worked with the government. I serve my public. And I had a caseload of people that I mentored through the process of their applications. So it's no different. I'm just working with the public. I have clients that I service, but also I have a team of women that I'm just kind of helping to matriculate through the process of entrepreneurship. It's the same skill set. It's the same giftings. It's just in a different industry, so like we have a lot in common in that respect.
Yeah.
Never would
I
have thought
think
it.
people
Never.
don't realize that because when God moves you, he doesn't wipe out what it was that you were doing and just set you over here. Because one of the biggest things that he's been dealing with me on, especially with a lot of the authors that I've worked with, is teaching them how to create a business around their writing.
And they don't see that. Oftentimes they don't see when they want to write the book, but they don't realize that when they complete their book, what they've just done is open the business.
Yes. And so that is trying to get them to see what that needs to look like. So I'm still coaching you in the same regard. The difference now is the framework is different.
Exactly.
And so now I have a greater opportunity to work with authors. And just to let you know, 3 of my authors that I've mentored and coached during the writing process, books just won literary awards.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so I was really excited about that. And I was like, of all the time for this to fall, it's fallen like right now.
Right.
And I was like, I'm always saying to God, are you setting me up for something?
Mm-hmm.
You must be setting me up for something. And I think that people fail to realize that when you're in a season of blessing, you really are being set up. Because that season of blessing is redirecting you into wherever it is that God wants you to go.
And everything that has occurred up until then was preparing you for this, and you didn't really know it. And I think a lot of times we miss opportunities. I know I had, because even when I made reference to joining the direct sales company, it was an open door that kind of catapulted me into everything else. But how many times, I can't think of how many times I said no to that opportunity. So we sometimes say no to the very thing that we desire, but because it doesn't come packaged the way we think it should be packaged, we don't see it. It's in the saying yes to an opportunity when it even looks crazy that everything begins to evolve. And, over time, that's the word, I guess, for the night, evolution, evolving, because I look back now and it all makes sense. I can see every step of the way. Every piece makes sense. In the process, it did not. It did not make sense, but it does now. It does.
It's like the saying that goes, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. What it is.
I want to jump into, now you said that you wrote your newest book over basically a 12-year period.
Actually, the book was written 12 years ago. And I'm using that loosely because I live in the city in which I live now about 9 years. And the content of this book was given to me long before I moved here. It was not originally, I guess it was always intended to be a book, but not in my own mindset. I had, but at the time in which this information was given to me or was all written out or revealed to me, I was, I had quit my federal job. I was home, and I realized within about 2 or 3 days to being a housewife was not my calling. And I began to, while I enjoyed what I was doing and I felt good about where I was, that was this part of me beginning to doubt that I moved too hastily. Did I think this thing through? Is this really what I should be doing? I'm not really sure I understand this place that I'm in. It's not, although it's not making sense. I just had a whole lot of questions. And so whenever I find myself in that place, nobody can answer it but God. So I go sit still and I pray. And God revealed to me the nuggets that I share in this book. And the thing that jumped out to me the most in the storyline is, for those who are in the Christian faith, we understand this. We know the story in 2 Kings about the widow whose children are about to be enslaved. And she goes to the prophet and says, basically, I'm paraphrasing, listen, I got issues. We owe all this money. They're about to, take my kids away. And in that day and time, a woman's livelihood was contingent upon her husband and or sons. So The question he asked her is, what do you have in your home?
Mhm.
Michelle, when I read that, I've always read this. I mean, we know that story. If you went to vacation Bible school, Sunday school, whatever, you heard the preacher preach, you know that story, right? But that question, what do you have in your home? And I stayed there for the longest time because I'm like, this woman just said she's in debt. They owe creditors at the yin yang. Her sons are about to be enslaved. And his response is, what do you have in your home? He didn't say, he didn't say, let me call the elders together, or, do you have some, it just, that didn't make sense. But it makes sense now because the question that he asked her was important. The very thing that she had in her home is what was used to answer the issue that she had. And so for me, when that was revealed, it was a confirmation that my working from my home was going to be the answer to a lot. Okay, was the solution, or was the answer to a lot, but not just for me, for a whole lot of other people too.
Mm-hmm.
So to tell the story the way it was told, it was revealed to me that, what we have in our home, oftentimes, if you're happily dissatisfied, like I was, unfulfilled, what do you have in your home? If you're not making enough money on the job and they won't give you the raise, why are you waiting on them to give you a raise when you can create it? What do you have in your home? All of that. You need to spend more time with your children. What do you have in your home? Because this lady was entrepreneurial and her boys were involved in the process. If you read the story with clarity. Yeah. So a lot of times home-based entrepreneurs, especially moms, their children become entrepreneurial as a result of working and seeing their mother work from home. You follow me? So a lot of that was confirmation for me to say, yes, Anissa, you are in the right place. And here's why. Here's how working from home, here is how what you have in the walls of your home can make a difference in your life significantly. But it's also a message for other people who might be in the same place, who don't know what to do, who find themselves in places of distress or confused, or, what have you. My question to them is the same thing as the man in the Bible said to her. What do you have in your home? And often we discredit because society has told us that selling bowls and lip gloss and candles is just media work. You need to go get you a great corporate job. Well, the corporate job requires you to be away from home 70 to 80 hours a week. How could you do that and be a mom too? Now you got to choose. When you can work from home, create what you desire and be there with your children. So for everything to be happening in the pandemic, this interesting season of life that we're in, it's bringing mothers back home to their kids.
Yes.
And women are becoming more entrepreneurial. I think it was the story about the furlough cheesecake. Remember that story out of the DMV area? Those sisters were furloughed. They decided to take their family recipe of cheesecake. Now they make their cheesecakes are sold everywhere. It was something they were doing in their home all the time. So the story was given to me. It was my own personal Bible study. I saved it. I salvaged it because it was serve as a reminder for me. And then my computer got stolen. We moved, but I never forgot the story because it was my Bible study. It was engraved in my heart. And then a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, at 3:30 in the morning, I woke up, couldn't sleep, and went upstairs to read and, and to do little me time. And that's when I know I was prompted to go to the computer and type it all out. And that's what I did. So in about 4 hours, I had regurgitated everything that I had already in my heart from that storyline. Sent it to my publishing mentor and said, here's something I need you to look at for me. Tell me what you think. And she was like, where did this book come from? You didn't tell me about this book. I was like, I just had to write it. And that's how it came about. So yes, I think it took 12 years, 13 years to come to fruition, to manifest, but it was given to me years ago.
I think it's important for people to realize that, and I said this actually after the book that I just put out last year, Desperate Housewives of Biblical Proportions. And I often tell people that where we are in our lives and the things that we go through in our lives and the experiences that we have are all necessary. They're necessary for whatever is transpiring in that moment to prepare us for what is next.
Right.
And there's a saying out in the world that says that we should not ignore small beginnings. Don't discount the small beginnings.
Right.
Because small beginnings are those seeds that turn into those huge mustard trees, those huge trees. And so I think it's a lesson to our listening and viewing audience for them to begin to understand, don't discount what you've already done. Because what God will do is he'll take what it is that you've already done and he'll build on it. And he'll build on it. And then when it's the season to be released, he won't leave you alone until you release it.
Right.
And so when after you talk to your publishing mentor and after you have said, okay, I'm going to put this out in the marketplace, how did you introduce the idea to the rest of your family, to those people that are most important in your life?
Well, Michelle, I must be honest. My husband knew of the content of the book long before it was actually written because I had conversation with him, right? But I've learned in my entrepreneurial journey that sometimes those that's closest to you are not oftentimes your biggest supporters. So because I've been in entrepreneurship for 22 years, I don't go to those closest to me from the get-go because I don't anticipate, it's not to say that I don't have a supportive circle, but I already know that my biggest supporters are generally going to be outside of the circle. So I didn't finish the book and then said, check this out, mom, sister, auntie, grandma, daddy. I didn't do that. I went straight through the usual process. And when we finished with the publishing of it, the editing and, the formatting and all of that was done. And we did the pre-sale for the best sale campaign because I decided to go through Amazon. When all of that's done, then they found out like everybody else found out. Because sometimes people in your immediate circle don't do it intentionally. They mean well, but who's to know? They may say, well, why you need to write another book? You hadn't sold enough of them other copies and here you are with another book. And then those little seeds sometimes can discourage you and think, you know what, you're right. Why would I need to do this? I put blinders on now. I don't look for, I appreciate their support, but I'm not, my moves are not contingent on their support anymore.
And that's important because I often tell people, why are you trying to rain on my parade?
Yeah.
Don't be trying to rain on my parade.
Right.
And it's amazing because nobody in my family does what I do. Matter of fact, they have looked at me in awe. It's kind of like, where'd this come from? And what it does, and it's the same thing. When I literally wrote the last book, I started writing that book as a Bible study. It started out as a vacation Bible school adult lesson. That's what it was. And God was like, okay, I want you to put that in a book and put it out in the marketplace. So me thinking it's just going to be a manual of curriculum that churches and organizations can pick up and be able to use and be able to run with it. And so that's my mindset. This is how we're going to do this, and then I got done. I got done with Jacob and his 4 wives. I was done with it. And he was like, nope, you're not done yet, ma'am. And I was like, that's all I had. He said, no, I want you to do the same thing with the other 3.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what other 3? Sarah, Haggai, and Rebecca. I was like, they weren't a part of this Bible study. And so, as it went on, that really was the longest time that it took me to write a book because of all of the research that I had to do and all that he was pouring into me. So I started literally writing that in March of 2020. And I finished it in May of 2020.
That's not long though, Michelle.
That when I say it was the longest time it took me to write a book, I was having a whole conniption fit because I was like, first book took 2 hours, second book took 3 weeks.
Okay.
Of course, the anthology took less than an hour.
Yeah.
And now I'm 3 months and I'm like, really, God, is this what we doing? But it was a process to teach me the important. This is another thing I think people need to understand. When you're writing, research is highly important. If I don't
Mhm.
care if it's nonfiction or fiction, doesn't matter. Do your
Right,
research. Make sure that
right.
it's relevant. Make sure that if you're going to use a scripture, please make sure you got the right address,
Yeah,
because
right.
there are people who are going to check.
That's true. That is true. That is so true.
So,
I think one of the similarities you and I have is, if you write in your book, it was never intended to be a book. It was like you said, it was for another purpose, that me writing the 7 keys to success was really my own quiet time. It was my me time. It was me looking through scriptures for answers to a question that I posed. And I was directed to that passage of scripture and another. And from both of those, to both of them have become books, but that was not the original intent. The original intent was to get answers for myself. And so just like you with your books, it was not about the book. It was about creating a resource
mhm,
that you could use and that would be of service to other people. And then from that, it evolved into a book, which is still serving the same purpose, but you didn't think
right.
book from the start, right?
No,
So,
did not. So what assignment have you given this book? What is your
oh
overall
wow.
idea? What is the purpose that you have attached to this book?
Um, my purpose that's attached to this book is, I believe, parallel and consistent to what was given to me at 19. And that was, I am to be a mentor or a consultant of sorts to women and women in business. All of my degrees are in business and administration. Okay. Um, and so with that being said, I am specifically called to women, but particularly those within the body of Christ.
Mhm.
And so even though the principles that are outlined in even this book, the 7 keys in the book that's going to come, are what I call universal principles, they can be applied to every aspect of your life. They are biblically based. So we have scripture and text that we have learned in life as a result of being a part of the Christian community that we really don't know how to appropriate to our lives practically. And from an entrepreneurial standpoint, even in the book, the 7 keys to success, there were 7 key principles that were given to me, revealed to me in that story of the widow. I never would have seen them otherwise, but they are applicable to everyone who's entrepreneurial, but also if you
Mhm.
wanted to have a successful marriage or successful relationship. There are just certain things that have to be in place. It's not the end all be all, but these are 7 key points that you must work to improve upon. It's not about perfection, it's about growth. And so those are what those 7 keys. So when the pandemic hit and things start to shift in our economy, in the life dynamics of households, and women started coming home, then that's when I saw it even more vividly.
Mhm.
These women are not necessarily coming home because they don't want to have executive salaries and they don't want to have, create elements of success, or they don't want to have a career. It's just that they made a conscious decision that my children, my family, the stability of my home takes precedence. I think that's where we should have always been. We should have
Right.
always been. But we bought into society that says, you go to school, you get your degrees, you get student loans out the yin yang, you get your good job, and you pay for, you work forever to pay off the student loans, and you try to build a life accordingly. You get married, and you have children, and now you're 2 family household because it's necessary. You put your children in childcare, you give them to strangers. Let's be clear. I mean, other than mama now, who might keep them. Daycare centers are perfect strangers to your children. And so, and I'm not knocking that, and I don't mean to sound condescending or to sound judgmental, not by any means, but as believers, as women who profess to be believers, the chosen people, God's chosen people, there was still the responsibility of being guided to guide our homes.
Mhm.
And how can you guide it if you're gone 80 hours a week? I mean, you can hire other people to help you, and even with me being at home working, I still have people to help me. Let's be clear. But you can't be as effective as you would desire to be because you're always torn between 2 opinions. The pandemic forced us to make a decision. Some people probably always wanted to be home. You follow what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But they felt like they couldn't, but the pandemic forced us to make a decision. So what I am saying is that even though it may look crazy and the pandemic may look weird and this time might be very interesting, I am excited because we are right where we're supposed to be. If the widow can create enough income to pay off all her debts and then have enough money left over so she and her children can live, which is legacy, why can't we do the same?
I
Then
think
women
that's
can be
important.
educated. Now we can.
I don't want to lose that. I want to make sure that people understand the concept behind it. So if you haven't read the story of this woman in Second Kings, you really need to go read it, because it's a very important story in the sense that it validates women's responsibility to their homes.
Right.
And it validates how our first love after having children is our children after God.
Right.
That's where our heart and our souls are, and we pour into them. But let's not forget that we still have a responsibility to make sure that we provide a home for our children to grow, to be nurtured, and to become everything that they are meant to be. Right. So I think that's really, really important. And women throughout history, we're the only ones that get the bad rep. We get the bad rep in regards to everything that goes on. They want us to do the home. We have to work in some regards, but if home ain't going right, then it's our fault. If work ain't going right,
it's our fault.
Then it's our fault. You know, and so I think for women, and they actually have done a lot of interviews of women that have made the decision to transition from corporate America to having a home-based business. And the decisions that they said that they made, every one of them that I've heard have said the exact same thing. It was for my family. Yep.
That's where our heart is. That's the very nature of who we are. We are nurturers by nature. We are life givers. You give us a home, we'll give you a house. You give us a seed, we give you a baby. We are born creators. We take little of nothing and make something out of it, right? You give us a few ingredients, we can make dressing or we can make cake. You know, it's just depending on the combination of things. So, and then we have the gift of being able to multitask. So to be able to work effectively in our household as the nurturer, as the stabilizer, is a part of our DNA innately. But, you know, I said jokingly earlier, I knew for sure I was not to be a housewife. I said I was going to be June Cleaver, and it lasted maybe 2 days. I was like, I have got to find something else to do, right? But at the same time, I still enjoy cooking meals at home. I want my house to be tidy. And that's going to be another book, because God gave me, I was like, okay, so I see this one widow, I see what the situation is, but let's be clear, Jesus. I mean, everybody is not June Cleaver. We do those things because it needs to be done, but that's not what fulfills us. We are capable of so much more in addition to that. That is vital, that is important, that is priority, but we are equipped. If Deborah was a ruler and a judge, you know, and she still was married, and, you know, you have all these women in the Bible that serve these very influential positions, you know, Esther, you know, there is more to it, but we've always been told we had to have one or the other.
Right.
We had to have one or the other. So I'm not saying that having a career is not the thing. I mean, if you're a corporate woman, then go and give it all you got. But I'm pretty sure that there are times when you want to be home with your children, because as a mother, it's innate in us. I am saying we can be executives in our home. I can take care of my family, make sure my home is stable, have the assistance that I need, create executive income from my home, and I don't have to compromise. But I cannot do it outside of God's perfect will. And I think we've become indoctrinated into what society says should be. And I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. Give me the pattern. And God gave it to me. This is part of the pattern. This 7 keys is part of that pattern. And so when I wrote it, you know, I was writing it out, like I said, it was for me to understand that I am on the right path. But this path is not just for me, it's for others. Now, who it was for didn't get revealed until later. And then that's when the book came about later. So like I said, it was an evolution for me. It didn't start off as, oh, let me get this written down and put this in ink and put a binder on it and put a cover on it, and I'm going to spread it to the world. So whoever listens is who I want to talk with. But anybody that listens, I'm willing to share. But if you're a woman of faith, and you share my values and, and my Christian faith, then I'm particularly calling the body of Christ. I believe women are on the cusp of something even bigger than what we realize, and that we're going to, our impact, even the working community. Think about this. Women are more giving than men. When we make money, we are more philanthropic, So a lot of the answers that we need in our home stem from what we choose to do, as well as in our communities, is what we choose to do and how we choose to do it. But we cannot buy into what society says is the answer. We have got to go back to the blueprint. And that's what the word of God is for me. It's my compass, it's my blueprint.
So of the 7 keys that you wrote about, which one is the one that gave you the greatest aha moment?
Mentorship. And that one was mentorship, and the other one is being a risk taker.
Okay, why? I'm gonna back it up. So why the risk taker? Let's talk about the risk taker first. Why the risk taker?
Okay, so we like to be comfortable. We don't want to do anything that we feel like is going to make us look stupid. We don't want to do anything that's going to cause people to talk about us. We don't want to do anything that our immediate sphere of influence will turn their noses up at, even though it might be something we're interested in. We're not willing to take that risk. We don't want to go out on the limb. And even when we do sometimes go out on the limb and do the we go against the norm, then we don't want to take the risk to go to the next level. It's always that we want to play it safe. And so in the story, I talk about the widow being a risk taker, because when she was challenged to go borrow jars, it said to go borrow a lot. She had to go out into her community. To go out into her community and borrow jars would require her to explain why she needed the jars. Does she really want them in her business like that, right? To go out into the community to borrow the jars would then reveal to some people her financial situation, because her husband was a leader in the church. Let's just say it that way, right? He was an assistant pastor, or he was a deacon, you know what I mean? And in our communities, he may have been an executive in the boardroom. He may have been, chairman of the board. I want to make it plain. So if I go out and start borrowing money or borrowing, then people are going to say, why do you need this? What is going on? So that was a risk, but she did what she was told. And so because she did, we see in how the story ended, that her being willing to take the risk served her in such a measure, more than what I'm sure she imagined. It probably didn't even make sense, the instructions he gave her. I told you we in debt and you told me to go buy our jars. I mean, really?
That makes sense. I hadn't thought about it like that, but that does make sense. So the mentorship, I kind of know where you're going with the mentorship, but why mentorship?
We have to be careful who we listen to.
Oh, wow.
You made reference to you're only person in your family doing what you do. All right. How many times do we embark upon something and then we have our aunts, our cousins, our parents, well-meaning, they're looking out for us and they go, girl, you're just wasting your time. How do you know that? You've never done what I'm trying to do. And then because we get that type of feedback, we stop doing what we're doing. We pull back, we place, put things on pause, and sometimes we don't ever pick it up again. My pastor has said oftentimes, whoever you allow to speak into your ear, they control your destiny. So when it comes to mentorship, it's important to find the right person to speak to and to listen to and to be accountable to. And it may not always be the same person for everything. I may go to one woman who was a very instrumental in my life, and I love her dearly. She was there for me during a lot of hard times, but she could not speak to me on taking risks in entrepreneurship because she was always safe at home. So when I would say something about traveling to take care of business, she would be like, well, why are you on the road like that? And you're not taking your husband with you? And I'm like, that's not what I need to hear. I need to hear something different. So I may have mentors in my life to help me navigate being a wife. and going through menopause and the changes that go through. You may have somebody that you trust to talk about those things, but that may not be the person I need to talk with about finances or investing
Right.
or entrepreneurship. So when it comes to having a mentor, you love your mom and you love your grandmother, but if they have not done what you are attempting to do, they are not the mentors for that. They might be the people you can say, I need you to pray for me. I got big goals. So just keep me on your prayer list and keep me lifted in prayer. You know what I mean? But they're not the ones that you go and sit down and say, what should I do next? Because they may not be able to relate to not only what you're doing, but where you're trying to go. And although they mean well, they may not be the people that you need speaking into that situation. So having the right mentors is in person and also important, but also being accountable. My publishing mentor told me when I was writing that first book, The Vendor Blueprint, and the Anthology project came about, the one As For Me in My House. And I was like, I don't have time for that. I'm trying to get my book done. I'm gonna get this finished. I'm almost finished. And I told her about it. And she says, I think you need to put your book down and go and work on the anthology. And I'm like, for what? I mean, are you serious? And she says, yes. I said, you really serious? And she said, yes. So I followed her instruction because she's a publishing mentor. It didn't make sense to me, right? Made absolutely no sense to me, especially for me to be almost finished with my book and having to start fresh. But what happened is that book became an international bestseller through Amazon, right? And so that was exciting. And so when I went back to her and told her what happened, what she knew, because she followed, she says, that's why I told you to put the book down. But she said, because now you have the title of international best-selling author. I was like, oh, really? She was like, yeah. Now put that in your bio. She says, and so I'm glad I listened, because I could have said, I'm not doing it. I'm finishing this book. That's all I want to do anyway. You follow me? So you have to listen to who you need. You have to have the right people in your space speaking to you, but you also have to be willing to listen and to be accountable. And that's not always comfortable. It's not always easy, but it's necessary.
Okay, I want to go back to something that you said when you were talking. You had talked about the importance of having a mentor. I want to touch on that a little bit more, because you made a excellent example of why we need to have mentors, but why one mentor does not cover every aspect of who you are or every aspect of what it is that you're doing. So how important is it to have a mentor that has already attained what you are trying to attain?
You know what? I want to define that a little bit with a little more clarity, because there are people who have attained what it is I desire to attain, but not with the level of integrity that I desire. So I want to make sure I'm not, and let me just say this, I don't believe there's anyone that's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. However, there are some values that must parallel. I know people who are successful in various industries, but their lifestyle does not parallel mine. So even if I want to accomplish some things and I'm looking for a mentor, I oftentimes say, find the person that has attained a level of success that you desire with the same level of integrity that you respect, with the level of integrity that you respect, because they can assist you with navigating through the roadblocks and the pitfalls that you wouldn't even know. You can't even prepare for what you don't know, but they've already navigated through those. So they can tell you the ins and outs and the do's and don'ts before you get there. And there's so much more you can accomplish in shorter time because you don't have to do those starts and stops that they may have had once to do. So that's why I say, mentorship is everything, man. It is very much. It's so, and we don't have to be long rangers. We were never meant to be long rangers out there on our own. I'm just gonna do my own thing. Okay, that's beautiful, but you need somebody to help you. You really need someone.
And I think that is important. Have somebody out there that has I'm one that, we were talking earlier, I'm a church girl. So I was raised in church, both parents, ministers. So, I was a pew baby, for lack of a better terminology. And so understanding that there are certain values, core values that make me who I am. And so understanding that anyone that comes within my inner circle or anyone that is attached to me, they have to have those similar core values. They have to have that their lifestyle needs to line up with my lifestyle, not the lifestyle that I used to live, but where I am today. Because even in my life, when I've had mentors, all of my mentors that I've had throughout my life have not traveled in every season of my life. They were there for that season. And then we parted ways because God took me in another direction. And then he put another mentor in my pathway to be able to help me to get to the next level. And once I reached that level, then me and that mentor parted our ways, even though we may have remained friends. And then there was another mentor that came about to help me get to my next level. So even though I have, for lack of a better word, an allegiance to the mentors that I've had throughout my life, I do not live my life according to them. I live my life according to God and the core values and principles that he has instilled in me. And so I want people to understand that it is necessary to have a mentor, because even in what I do, I have mentors. I even have a coach, and there's a little difference between the two.
That's true.
However, both of them pour into me what it is that I need to continue moving forward with the goals that I have for my life and the direction that I believe God is taking us in. So, Anissa, if somebody wants to get your book, where can they pick the book up at?
Well, they can go to Amazon. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process of getting my own website created. But for now, the book, 7 Keys to Success in Business and Life, the Kindle is now available immediately. It's on Amazon now. We had a little, I don't know what kind of technical glitch we had with KDP on the paperback, but we expect for it to be live by the end of the week. And of course, both are now currently available on Amazon. When that changes, I will be sure to let my community know. But for right now, every book that I've written is available on Amazon.
Okay, so I want to ask one other question, because I know for the authors that are watching this, they are dying to know. How in the world did you end up with a second book that is an international bestseller?
My publishing team. God placed me in the right space. My publishing mentor, most of the work that I do, or all of the work that I do, is through Chosen Pen Publishing. Dr. Norma McLaughlin is the CEO, and she's my publishing mentor. And because of relationships that she's established as a result of starting the publishing business, the business itself, she has a team. And, I don't know what they do. I just let them do, that's their lane. I just write the book and do it. But they have a tight community. And when our books with Chosen Pen get ready to hit, I just wanted best sale. That's all I wanted. To hit international best sale was the added plus. But they work timelessly. They have their strategies. They do what they do. I don't know what they do, but they get it done. They get it done. So that was a blessing. It really was. It was a blessing. And then, funny enough, I had an interview with the lady from, well, I thought she was in California at the time, but she was living in the Virgin Islands at the time in which we did the interview. And she said to me, she says, your book will go international. And what she did not know prior to me booking, I booked the interview with her and for her television, her podcast. And then in the course of time of me booking the interview with her and us having the interview with her, she said the book became an international bestseller. And I said, it's funny because she said that during the call with me. And then I said, well, it just announced as an international bestseller. And I said, I just got a text from a friend who had bought the book, pre-purchased it on her Kindle, and she's flying to Greece as of right now. And she says she's reading my book on the plane. So it has already entered into Greece. My book is literally in Greece right now. So it was funny, but yeah, I can't take any credit for that. I just wrote the book, and the publishing team did their work. They did their work.
So I know Dr. Norma, and she is a phenomenal woman. She's a phenomenal woman. So it has been a pleasure, Anissa, talking to you, catching up with you on the things that are going on, and the 7 keys to success in life and business.
In business and life. Mm-hmm.
In business and life. It's going to do exceptionally well. I'm already excited for it. I'm always excited when we can take the word of God and be able to put it in a manner that it becomes applicable to everybody's
Right.
lives, because
Right.
everybody is not adept enough to do that for themselves.
That's a
And so
gift. Yeah.
I thank God for him even giving that concept to you, and then you being obedient to put it in a book so that others can receive from it. Because I'm telling you, there's nothing new under the sun. It's what the word
Nothing.
of God says. There's nothing new
Right.
under the sun. And so the same things that worked back then still work today. We just
That's
have to
true.
put it in today's terminology
That's
so that
true.
people can grasp it and be able to utilize it in their lives.
That is so
So
true.
let's give the people an opportunity to reach out to you. How would they reach out to you? How do they get in touch with you?
They can find me on social media. I have two primary social media handles on Instagram and in Facebook. They can find me as the Work From Home CEO. That will be ampersand WFH CEO. I'm also found on Facebook under my name, Anissa Short. That's my personal profile. If you want to connect with me in a different manner, you can always go have a Linktree link that I created until my website is complete. And of course, if you're familiar with that, that's linktr.ee/Dr. Anissa Short. That's how it's listed. So if they go there, they'll not only be able to see some clips of some of the work that I do with podcasts and all of that, but they'll see my books listed in that link. They'll see another link where they can connect with me, of course, via social media and my other website with my direct sales company. So it's a collection of everything in one spot during that. So that again is Linktree, is linktr.ee/Dr. Anissa Short.
Well, Dr. Anissa Short, it has been a pleasure having you on Girls Talk Real Talk today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, sharing your life, and also sharing your newest book with us. I'm sure
Michelle.
that once it comes out in paperback, see, I like the ebooks, but I love paperback.
Yeah, I like to turn down the pages and all that, highlight, put notes in the margins.
Be able to date it and say, this was the thought that I had when I read it.
Right. All of that. Thank you. Yeah,
like,
right.
Man, what was I thinking then?
I know.
Yeah.
I can so relate. Michelle, I so appreciate you for this opportunity. Thank you again. It was great catching up with you. We have got to stay better connected. And I wish you continued success with everything that you're doing. Everything.
Thank you. Thank you. So everybody, this is your girl, Michelle, with Anissa on Girls Talk Real Talk, because when girls talk, just about anything can happen. So stay tuned next week for another exciting show for Girls Talk Real Talk. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.